So we've been talking mostly about the emotional experience, the psychological experience of awe and of wonder. But is there also an ethical component here? I mean, are we better people when we have these experiences?
I get really nervous when we start talking about any emotion as inherently good or bad. I think wonder as a state of curiosity and information seeking is fundamentally good. When we start talking about emotions, be they positive, pleasant emotions such as awe or amusement or pride, or negative emotions such as sadness or anger, they help us to solve a problem. And they do that by kicking in certain mechanisms without our having to think about it too hard. Those mechanisms have positive pro-social benefits sometimes. There's some evidence, and actually one of the later speakers in this series is going to talk about some evidence that under certain circumstances awe can increase our tendency to help a stranger. But awe is often used for pretty nefarious purposes sometimes.
Like what?
Well, cult leaders, right? Dictators, religious extremists will use awe to get people to follow their cause and commit to them, and in some cases perform pretty horrifying acts. And if one of the things that awe does, which I think is a pretty good description, there's a lot that we don't know, but if I was going to encapsulate what we do know, I would suggest that awe might promote some flexibility in the mind. It might help the mind stretch to add something. What it is that gets added is kind of fair game. That's not always going to be good. And
yet, on the other hand, I mean, Caspar, you were saying that you think joy is one of the emotional components of these experiences. And, I mean, that seems like just a very positive emotion. I mean, who would argue against joy?
Well, you might express joy at the dismemberment of somebody from a community you don't particularly like.
Okay.
To extend your point, we might be ululating with ecstasy that our enemies are being dashed to pieces in front of our eyes. I mean, this does happen. Humans do this kind of thing. So, I think you've made a very important point that emotions, good or bad, is too easy. We have to think about the context. That being said, we'd like to think, and we hope and we see it can be possible to facilitate. So if we go and hear some music we really like, we might go and see it with a friend, for example, and we'll come away from that evening. Our friendship will be enhanced and enriched, and we'll remember it together in years to come. So we can clearly see, so we should go and hear more music and go and dismember fewer people. I mean,
Yay.
Yeah, I think Lani makes a very good point, actually, that there could be, you could be in awe of some incredibly powerful and charismatic leader, as Hitler was, right? I mean, it's not that everyone was threatened with death unless they followed his orders. I mean, he was generally, by the people who followed him, a loved man, a beloved man, and people thought that he was doing the right thing, and they were in awe of him, and he, by all accounts, seemed to give his followers joy, and yet it was a very intrinsically evil thing that was being done, right?